Hey, Rob Sakalas, welcome back. This is episode 10 of my series of how to escape becoming average after you graduate from college. Today's going to be an incredibly important topic because it really is something that you should get obsessed about. It's a habit that you've got to get into. And this idea is you've got to make a single first down every week of your life on your number one priority. If you want to escape average, if you want to become top 10% in the country. If you're not familiar with American football, this is a sport that absolutely rewards steady progress. You get 4 downs, 4 attempts, 4 plays basically to make a first down, which means earning 10 yards. If you can advance the ball 10 yards, you get another first down and another 4 chances to advance the ball another 10 yards. And of course, you keep doing this going down the field until you score a touchdown. In that same way, you've got to make important first downs on your number one priority in your regular life to succeed. Unfortunately, this has been around, by the way, since the ancient Greeks, right? Acta non verba means actions speak louder than words. Lots of people talk about doing important things. Very few people actually do that. Most people just talk about it. Most people talk about losing weight. Most people talk about their new startup, but actually doing it is what matters the most. And so you can't earn an important first down if you're not clear as to what your number one priority is. What separates a lot of the people that have achieved some of the greatest things in history, people like, Charles Lindbergh, for example. One of his main habits was that he would always ID what his number one priority was and what his number one thing to do on that priority was, and he would do that first. You've got to remember what number one is to you on a daily basis, and then you've got to make measurable progress in reasonable time on that number one every single week. We learned this when we were kids, right? The whole story of the tortoise and the hare. Steady, measurable progress wins the race. Not one big burst with willpower. The average person, unfortunately, has many priorities. As a result, they're always chasing 2 rabbits, right? And if you chase 2 rabbits, both will escape. You can't focus on too many things at once. In fact, the word priority was a singular only word only 100 years ago. Only recently have we messed that up and suddenly started calling it priorities, which means that nothing is truly a priority. Don't be average. Don't have many priorities. I have an example of this from my own life. Too many opportunities makes it really, really hard. So if in professional sales, if you have too many accounts, you have too many opportunities. At one moment in my career, I wound up working for an East Coast company that was trying to expand west. I was hired in Texas, but basically, I had license to go sell any account west of the Mississippi River, which meant hundreds of accounts were all potentially opportunities for me. Luckily, I looked at the territory. I said, this is overwhelming. And I decided to focus on one account at a time, win one big account that's going to basically be worth good money now and good money in the future, and then expand slowly by winning these accounts, one priority at a time. That is exactly what happened. I wound up expanding the territory. We had kind of a little bit of business when I took over, and it was really worth about $1 million a year. In only 3 or 4 years, I was able to grow this into a $30 million a year business by focusing on one priority at a time. You've got to focus on things that are going to have lasting value. I call those strategic, whether it's strategic tasks or strategic projects. But the whole point is that once you complete that task, it doesn't qualify in my book as strategic unless it continues to add value. It continues to add momentum to your life 90 days into the future. It's an easy way to test things. If I complete this today, is it going to be worth anything tomorrow? And unfortunately, in the corporate environment, a lot of times we're working on things that aren't that important. Somebody might be pounding on you to get this report done. You get the report done, a few people in management look at it, and then the value is gone. So no matter how urgent that was from other people, it sure as hell wasn't strategic. You've got to work on things that are going to be valuable in the future and continue to help build your momentum. And so the problem sometimes is that the number one thing that we have to do is ugly, like an ugly frog. Somebody says you got to swallow that ugly frog. And most people, average people, wind up skipping the number one thing that they know that they have to do and start working on other things on their list. Number 2, number 3, number 4 look a lot easier, right? And so it's really easy to stay busy working on things that are not your true number one, and way too often you get stuck because that number one thing looks like a logjam that you don't want to take on. Go ahead and make a habit of swallowing that ugly frog first thing. You're going to find out you're going to make amazing progress if you're willing to take on the ugly ones too. Don't fall into the trap of thinking the strategic things are going to be urgent. No, these are the things that rarely have a deadline. For example, if you want to become a better public speaker, nobody's going to be pounding on you saying, hey, go to Toastmasters, take classes, do this, do that to become a better public speaker. Of course, you can see in a world that's dominated by being effective at communications, that would be a truly strategic thing that builds value for you over time. But it's not going to have a deadline. Unfortunately, good things to do often get in the way of great things to do. And it'll be that way for the rest of your life. You've got to pick the great things to work on, the things that are going to give you value. And one of the ways you do that is a technique called big rocks. Do the big rocks first. If you're unfamiliar, there's a video by Stephen Covey. Really, really short, but it kind of illustrates this point. When you work on the big things, the big projects first, you're going to find out that all the other little tasks you have to get done still fit in the jar of time that you have. On the other hand, if you work on the small stuff first, you'll never have time for those big things that are strategic, that are going to make a difference in your life. You've got to work on the big things first. When you make plans, and I'm going to have a future episode that talks a lot about how do you go from goals to plans to actions, but this deserves a point right here. You've got to make your plans as specific and clear, measurable and actionable as possible. What I'm trying to say here is that if you create little steps along the way, making first downs, for example, make them as clear as you can so you can jump and start doing the work right away. We've talked about in a previous episode about how important it is to think on paper and make a plan on paper. But when you make that plan, make sure it's not a topic that is hard to understand. For example, make vacation plans is very non-specific. On the other hand, if you say book the hotel in Aspen, yes, it's something you can jump and do immediately. So you got to make every step that clear. So the minute you see that task, you know what you're going to do next. You also have to build resilience into your plans. And the easiest way to do that, by the way, people often say, oh, I tried everything. The truth is they tried one thing, maybe two things. But if you jot down, what am I going to do if this doesn't work, right? My plan B, my plan C, you're going to find out that you're going to become much more resilient, because then when plan A does fail or stumble, you'll have other ideas of how to proceed, other things that you can try. Planning ahead for your resiliency, for your plan B and your plan C matters a lot. The last thing I want to mention is that speed often kills. People are always in a hurry. But the truth is, going the right direction, or whatever you're working on, is actually more important than how fast you go. Make measurable progress. Make a first down every single week. Make this a habit for the rest of your life, and you'll be far better off. Don't forget to subscribe below. Next episode's coming next week. And it's going to deal, by the way, with a very important topic, which is procrastination. I think it's something that we all suffer a little bit. I can't wait to see you on that one. But above everything else, figure out the number one thing you need to do on your number one priority every single week and make measurable progress, and you will join the top 10%. Thanks.